Hi, I'm Jake McCormack, and this is kind of my recap slash deck guide for Kassai at Australian Nationals 2025. I believe this deck was a really good choice for this event and will be a very good choice for the metagame going forwards. I also believe that this deck was extremely well positioned over the weekend and will only continue to grow that way going into Pro Tour Singapore. And yeah, so let's kind of go into why I chose to pick this deck. I actually spent the last 2 months since Pro Tour London just playing Verdants. I was really, really happy with the deck going into probably about 2.5 weeks ago before the event. I felt really solid about the pick, especially after it took down US Nationals. And then things started to kind of drop off as soon as we saw Gravy Bones kind of implementing sloops, which kind of made Syndra's kind of go up, which also made Prism go up. And so we got to this choice before the Monday of the event, and I went, oh my god, my deck that was the best deck for this event is suddenly like not playable into basically the entire meta. I felt that the Gravy matchup was unwinnable. I felt that the Syndra matchup was slightly unfavored, and that the Assassin matchup wasn't as concrete as I wanted it to be, and the Prism matchup was like winnable but still really hard. I just felt like I wasn't giving myself any edge going into the tournament. And typically, I'm normally really stubborn. I'll just play the same deck that I've been playing for weeks, even if I think it switches to be badly performance. But this time, I really wanted to do well at this event. So the Tuesday night of the event, I played Verdance at an Armory. I think I went like 1-2, and I was just so unimpressed. I was like, all right, that's it. We're pivoting. So I went home that night. I think during the day I had already been testing Azalea and Syndra. Wasn't really impressed with either of those decks. So I finished my armory. I drove home and I hopped on a call with Vin Luong, who gave me a really big help in like getting this deck together and giving me some matchup notes. Overall, was a very big help. Shout out Vin. Thank you very much. So yeah, we kind of sat in Discord till 2 a.m. or something like that, and just kind of talked about the list and kind of built off some of the other lists like Iron Chance, and kind of I believe it was Chance, kind of built up what we thought would be the ideal version of the deck going into this weekend. He's been playing Kassai for a while. I kind of have not touched the deck since Heavy Hitters, but I was kind of like, oh, I think this deck is very strong this weekend. I knew there was going to be Optic and Slippy and Syndra particularly. I think this deck actually has a pretty okay Prism matchup, although I didn't get to play it this weekend. And I think this deck has a really amazing Gravy Bones matchup built into the main deck, which I think is very, very important in the current metagame. Let's kind of, and then I just spent the next 3 days basically. I played a lot of games into Gravy Bones, into Syndra. I think I played 2 mirrors just in case that came up, and then I played 1 game into Verdance, which I think I understood the matchup well enough after playing 1 game. So we'll kind of go over some of the card choices, where it differs from other lists. So the first thing I did was, I think the original list we were building off had Hot Streak. I did indeed have Hot Streak in until the night before the event, and then I thought about it, and I was like, the combo turns I'm trying to kill my Gravy Bones opponents with, this could just be +1 damage, and honestly, I have, in 3 days of testing, not triggered Hot Streak once. I think I should just be playing Centauri Saber. That's the more important thing. Just it's basically 1 extra guaranteed damage, 1 to 2 extra guaranteed damage on your combo turn. Against with Blood on Our Hands, the copper sacrificing multi-attack card. Basically, how that works is you swing with the Centauri Saber. Um, they block it with an attack, and then it gets +1 until end of turn. So when the second swing comes in, you get another +1 on that. And I found that to be much, much more relevant than the go again from Hot Streak ever was. So then we had, so the original list that we were building off of had 6 draw swords. As I kept testing, I really appreciated draw swords. I thought the card was very good into matchups like Verdance, where you just want to clear your hand. Ultimately, I kind of decided that the yellows were a little bit too spiky, and that I found the list as a whole had a little bit of a problem with go again, particularly against Syndras who went attack, 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 warmongers. I wanted to make sure that I had ways to get around that, so I ended up trimming the yellows and went down to 2 reds. In the swing, I felt like we only needed two copies in this metagame. Decks aren't really interested in blocking Kassai, especially on spoils turns. They're just people seem to be more interested in kind of developing their own game plans and board states, like in Gravy Bones. So yeah, Nourishing Emptiness. This card's amazing right now. There's a lot of decks that aren't playing Directs, like Syndra, and obviously you can proc the on hit into Chum with Gravy, which is such a good two-card play. It's unreal. Came up multiple times throughout the weekend for me. This card's great. The reason you can play two in this deck is that you can activate Kassai of the Golden Sand, banish the first one, and then the second one is live as well. Was very unimpressed. Outland Skirmish. This card's just the best. It's a buff that is red and makes a copper. Good enough. That's good enough. One thing with this card is I think an interesting part about Kassai is when you get free draws going throughout your turn. Say that's like Gorganian Tomb or cracking a gold token. When you activate these effects, your rate becomes slightly better, so it's more justifiable to include quote unquote below rate cards like 0 for 3s, as opposed to where I normally want to be with 0 for 4s or 0.375 is 3.75 is like kind of the rate I try to aim for all my cards to be at. This card not only makes a copper, which is like arguably worth a point in itself, in that it's kind of enabling our macro game plan, but it's also +3, so the card's just very good. And importantly with this deck, I want a lot of it to be pitchless. I want the cards that I'm pitching for to be incredibly important or impactful. This deck's obviously fairly low on blues, so I kind of wanted to lean into the theme of I want my pitch to be for gold, I want my pitch to be for nourishing and spoils, and go again if I have to. So another pitchless buff is kind of exactly where I want it to be. Red Slice and Dice, this card's a 0/4, this card's amazing. Blocks 3 when you don't need to. I don't think I have to sell anyone on this card. Yellow Slice and Dice, I think the yellows in this deck are really complicated in that how you prioritize go again, how you prioritize filtering through deck and getting draws with stuff like yellow draw swords. The way I saw it is that I like the breakpoints this creates. It makes 3 into 4, but they get +1 into decks like Syndra and Gravy Bones, which are full of a lot of attacks. So I found this card very good at pushing breakpoints on turns where you've activated Kassai or you've played a Spoils of War, for example. Because I always want to be hitting for like at least one with the dagger to get either of those effects off. Unsheath, this card's so good. Sync Blow, a lot of people play Fateful Scenes instead of Sync Blows to get a look at the card on top of their deck. The way I see it is that Sync Below is a card that can stop you from losing the game when you don't draw a Go Again source, or you don't draw a blue, or you don't draw a yellow, or you don't draw a particular thing you need at that particular moment. It churns you an extra card through the deck on that turn instead of in a turn's time, basically, because you have to draw the next set of cards normally. Overall, I feel this was a really good inclusion and a really good choice. I was very very pleased with this. I could put away no blocks when you need them to. I think having Sync Blows in the main was also really good into Gravy Bones because it meant I didn't have to use my armor on Conqueror of the High Seas when that came down, which I think is the most pivotal card in that matchup. Spoils War, this is arguably the best card in the deck, or at least supports the best card in the deck. +2 and go again, you push your Centauri Saber to a breakpoint, create copper this turn, like it just does everything you want to do. Unsheathed, one of the best cards in the deck. Yellow and blue Blade Runner. So this was a change I made 2 days before the event after playing some games into Syndra. I just wanted a density of attack reacts that gave go again in order to get around Warmongers into the decks that I thought could play that into me, like Syndra. I don't actually rate that play very highly, but I know people will try and do it, and I believe this is the best way to kind of get around it, reset my dynamos, and keep on top of tempo, because even if I have useless non-attack actions like a Slice and Dice in my hand, I can always just pitch those away, but if I don't have go again, I can't reset my dynamos and keep the loop that keeps me ahead going. Blood on our hands, it's the card that makes the deck worth playing. A lot of games you just end by going spoils, make 4 copper, get another 1 to 2 from another spoils or an Outland Skirmish, and just ending the game that way. Into Gravy Bones, it's particularly impactful because A lot of the time, you can throw those 20 to 30 damage turns at them and they just die. Especially if you're getting a lot of passive damage in throughout the game and they're playing a bit more tipples instead of like multiple ally hands. And yeah, and I think the card's really good. Blue hit and run is just go again. Yellow hit and run is a yellow that gives go again, so that's exactly where I want to be. I just want to make sure every hand has go again. Every hand is getting maximum value out of dynamos. Raisin Army, honestly, this card did not come up much over the weekend, but if I ran into decks like Riptide, Jarl, Victor, Bravo, getting a 3 to 4 Raisin Army is very important to kind of ending the game. Can come up against Gravy. I think I made a Centauri Sellsword in one game. It was fine. It got a lot of value. It was pretty good. Um, Unfortunately for this deck, we're going to talk about the pricey cards now. Riches of Tropodani. Yes, it's really, really good. Yes, you should play it into most matchups. Personally, I didn't play it into Syndra, or any of the no blocks like Gorganian Tomb or Eye of Ophidia. These three cards were kind of just a boarded package that came out against any deck that I thought could do something with on hits that was important enough that I just needed to make sure they weren't in the deck. I know Justin Lim built his deck in a different way. I found this just like a very clean way to make sure that I had consistency in my games. So yeah, I would cut these cards into decks like Syndra, but anything even mid-rangey like Gravy Bones or anything that goes super long, these cards really shine. They're really important. They're very impactful, which I think is not good for people's wallets, but oh well. Run through, this card's just another copy of Yellow Blade Runner. Like I said, I want to prioritize reactions, giving go again, and I just found it very important. Sharpen Senses, this card looks kind of bad on a surface level. Obviously, puts your sabers to 3, don't get go again. But in combination with any cards like Blade Flurry, Draw Swords, Outland Skirmish, or even enough copies of Slice and Dice, which came up in one of my games I'll talk about later, gives go again, and then on the Blood on Our Hands combo turn, playing one of these basically functions as a yellow 0 for 4, because you give all 4 attacks plus 1. Can even save your copper sometimes if you're stacking it with a buff. Card's very, very good. Very, very good, and notable upgrade to the deck coming from LSS in the Hunted. Glint the Quicksilver, this card's amazing. Makes your second dagger free sometimes. When you're in locks, it can be really broken as just like a way to get consistent go again at blue. Same thing with Trot Along, but obviously significantly worse. And then Provoke. This card, I think, is really overperformed all weekend. I'm going to 3 copies in my post-Australian Nationals list. I think it's really good into decks like Syndra. It can be really good into decks like Verdance. Like, I just want to play this card. It can be really good in the mirror. I just want to play this card into any deck that doesn't want to block a Saber for 2 and just make them really, really hate it. And yeah, this card's very, very good. I think it's the best way to clear blues from your hand when you already have go again from something else. It's just something to do with your blues that is extremely impactful. So then we come to my sideboard. I had 3 copies of Battlefront Bastion. This was just for the Prism matchup. That's it. In hindsight, I don't know if it was necessary. I think I maybe expected a little too much Prism. Can't exactly remember the exact count on how many Prisms there were at the event. But yeah, I don't know if this card's necessary. I need to do more testing in that matchup, but I think I'm going to test it without these going forward. But just in case I ran into them. Shelter, amazing into Syndra, amazing into Mario, amazing into Slippy. Just a really good card, very good into the Warrior Mirrors. Yeah, this is a very good card. It's 0 for 4. That's what the deck wants to do. Take it on the chin. This card performed all weekend. I would play 3 if I wasn't terrified of drawing multiple at once. Comes up against Wizard to stop arcane damage. Comes up in the mirror. Comes up against Syndra to stop throw daggers and flick knives. Honestly, the card's just very good. Resets your dynamos off 1 card, essentially. The card's amazing. Balance of Justice. This is my headpiece into your Gravy Bones. It can force Gravies to play in a really uncomfortable way, and if they just let you do it, you get to draw a card. I don't want to play Crown of Dominion into that matchup because I don't want them to have Hook active turn 1 or any other turn in the game. I just want to, essentially in that matchup, I don't even want to activate Kassai. Making gold is not a priority in my game plan. I just want to make sure that I don't have to block around Hook. Hook is really annoying, and some turns you just want to let them have a gold. I'd say most of the time when I'm making gold, I want to. It's because I have a blood on my hands and copper already waiting, and I'm just trying to make something that guaranteed means I'll draw a card next turn, so that I can combo kill them. I think this was really, really good tech that actually really helped in my games, and in my testing was extremely effective. Amulet of Echoes, you might look at this card and be like, ooh, what's this Everfirst Bulk doing in here? This card's really, really good into Acilio. I think shutting down a combo turn potentially is the difference between winning and losing that match quite frequently. I'm playing 2 copies just to try and find them faster. Again, the card's just very, very good. I think also it can buy you extra time into Verdance, where it's a blue for AB, but it's also a way to, if your opponent has Rampant Growth Life, Rampant Growth Life, Rampant Growth Life, Surgeon on the field, there's ways this can come up where they can have to have the spell in Arsenal, which can obviously mean that difference between you dying and living. And can be the difference between you getting one more turn, which is typically I found that this deck is about 1 turn ahead of them. I think this pushes them to like 2 turns ahead of them, which is exactly where I want to be. Kabuto of Imperial Authority. This comes up in 3 situations. Warrior Mirrors, obviously, where you crack it against your opponent's blood on our hands against other Kassais. It's very, very good there. You kind of have to play it because if they're playing it and you're not, you're kind of screwed. Turning down Wrath of Retribution and Spreading Flames, just stopping their turn basically, making them play under 8. Wrath of Retribution, I think honestly they maybe should be boarding out because if the Kassai flips this card's very annoying. I will say with this card you want to not necessarily save it to the end of the game. Quite often I was getting my opponents to sub 10, then I was using it, and then the last use case is screwing over an Ira's dual threat turn, which did come up. I did it to my round 11 round 10? Round 11. One of those. Opponent, and it meant that like his dual threat, which he just arsenaled, was done on a nasty surprise instead of a CNC. Obviously, that's quite a big difference. I think this card's very, very good in that matchup specifically. And then for AB, we have Norrin Hood and Norrin Gloves. I want Hood into Rune Blades, anything like with that I just want to play AB1 into, and then Norrin Gloves and Norrin Hood I want to be playing into Kano and Verdance and maybe Acilio. I haven't really decided if AB0 is correct into Acilio yet, but I think that's the matchup that you have to worry about, so yeah. And I think giving up your Hood slot is probably the least important, followed by your Glove slot. Cards that I tested and didn't play, the third Sink Below, the Draw Swords I've already talked about. I tried Blanche. I wasn't impressed. I thought it wasn't worth it. I just was like, I don't need it. Crown of Providence, I'd just always rather be on the other 2. Stroke of Foresight was in the original list. I didn't really see the use for it. Overpower I thought was quite good as like a fatigue thing, but fatigue's not really real right now because of Gravy Bones. Compliance, I don't know if this card does anything into most of the wizards. I think if they're expecting it as well, it does even less. That's all you got. I know Justin was on too. I'm keen to try it, but I just don't see a use case for it right now. I think you're already favored into Syndra, and you're already favored into Gravy, so I don't know where this card comes up that it's relevant is kind of where I'm at. Remembrance, just in case, against Fatigue decks, but again, Fatigue's not real right now, and Vin tried to get me to play this card, and I went, nope, I'm not giving a Gravy Bones gold, and yeah. And I think Goblet is a really good future sideboard card if you're expecting a lot of Verdance, as it's a way to use your blues efficiently and kind of set up go again for the next turn. And yeah, that's the list. That's kind of my justification behind all the cards. I think overall we did a really good job of getting this deck together in 3 days, 3.5 days if you want to call it that. I think those last 5 cards I changed at like 2 a.m. on the Friday night were all very impactful. I think the slots were, I think I had 3 more poppers in the board, and I added the extra Null Gloves. I think I added a Nourishing back in, and then I added the Balance of Justice, and I think those are the 3 most impactful changes. And yeah, I was very, very happy with how the deck played. So now we'll kind of go through a run through of my Australian Nationals run. So round one, I played against Tom. He was playing Victor. This was not a matchup I had played in a very long time since Heavy Hitters season. Personally, I was like, this could go either way. I think he didn't clash a huge amount of times, and I kind of just got all my copper through and did a big blood on our hands turn, maintained some life lead. Yeah, that's it. I then played against Min on Syndra. Yeah, so um, matchup's pretty good. Wasn't too bad. Yeah, was feeling pretty good at this point. 2-0. Was like, okay, I'll win the next one. I 2-1 both my drafts. We're in a very, very good spot going into day two because I was feeling very good about constructed, not so good about limited. Round three, I play against Farhad. He's on Gravy Bones. Again, I've discussed at length how this deck is very, very good into Gravy Bones. Kind of the reason that's the case is because they can't deny Spoils of War, and they're also a deck that kind of blocks badly. If you make 6 copper and then play Blood on our hands, and then keep like another 4 cards, draw a card somehow to make your sabers free, you can get up to like 33 damage, I think I worked out one day. And that quite frequently will just end the game against them. I found that very, very effective. I was actually testing this matchup with Quan Lee, my round 12 opponent, who was on the same list as Farhad. It turned out there is a way you can lose this matchup. It's called your spoils being on the bottom of your deck. So had a very strong early game. I think I was on 35, he was on 12. Game's like set to end pretty quick. I'm like, oh, okay, we're good. He has no allies or anything. Like, we just have to kill allies and sit here until we get a blood on our hands. Because blood on our hands for 25-30 will just kill him, and I have enough life and armor left. That'll be fine. What ended up happening is I drew multiple hands of blues in a row that just didn't convert that well, and then a couple of hands of yellows and reds that just, again, didn't convert very well because of the way their pitch deck was sorted. I think if all those hands had a blue instead of a yellow, they all converted really well, but oh well. And didn't see any spoils because they were all in the bottom 8 cards of the deck, unfortunately. But that's variance for you. I think, yeah, I think there wasn't much to do about winning that game. If I tried to keep being aggressive, I would have hit the blue hands and I would have just not been able to kill. I tried being reactive instead, and it just wasn't enough. So yeah. Round 4, so we go into my first draft. I don't have a photo of this draft deck, but so round 4, there's 4 Puffins in my pod. I was forcing Puffin for this event. I found it to be a really good strategy that was kind of underrepresented in a lot of the practice drafts I was doing. So there is 4 Puffins. We are equally spaced, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, middle of pack 2, I'm like, end of pack 1, I was like very concerned because there was 4 blue Puffin 3 blocks, and I was like, and a Rust Belt, and I was like, oh, this is great, I'm gonna get a good wheel out of this pack. And then it wheels, and there is no Puffin cards in there, and I'm like, oh no. And I'm like very firmly in Puffin. I've been taking a lot of like Zeppelins and stuff like that, and I was very firmly in the deck. I think the only pick I'd taken off by them was like another Pirate 3 block blue and a Nimblism red, which I took early as a hedge to go into Redback Mantle Mullen, just in case. Not quite sure what happened there. So I sit down against Vincent Lim, another Melbourne player. We play a mirror. I think I'm on Spitfire. He's on Cogworks Blunderblast. I get fatigued eventually. I think I was a couple of cards off getting there. Fair enough, honestly. I couldn't really fault it. I think Vince played it better than me. And yeah. So middle of pack 2, also importantly for this deck. I really wish I took a photo of this deck. I had a Palantir as well as a what's it called? Cog in the Machine. Middle of pack 2, they just got past me. I was very confused about how they got to me, but apparently they just went through a Puffin to my left and were opened by the guy 2 and 3 seats to my left. Can't really fault them for that. I don't really know what the pack was like, but I was just kind of like, oh, alright, I guess my deck's good even though there's 4 Puffins. And yeah, so I lost to Vince, and then I went on to play David Smith, who was one of the other Puffins. I think I just played a very, very powerful game, and just I think I went second because I won the die roll. And I just got there eventually because my deck was very consistent in the number of go again attacks plus buffs to start my turn. And I was kind of winning the Treasure Island race, which I think is the most important thing in the Puffin Mirror. Round last Palantir didn't really come up. I think Cog in the Machine was fairly impactful in this game. Last round, I play against Remy, another really good Australian player, I believe from Queensland, but unsure. He's on Gravy Bones. He's one of 2 Gravy Bones in the pod, I believe. I think it was 2 Gravy, 2 Marlin, 4 Puffin. This game was like kind of even. I think I was slightly ahead until I set up a turn where I went perk up Yellow Goldwing Turbine into Palantir for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 15, and he blocks with a Hoist 'em Up, and I destroy the Hoist 'em Up with the Palantir, getting 19 value out of my Palantir turn, and unfortunately for Remy, I don't think he was coming back from that, and it was a very, very good turn, and I think I just won the game based on that. I had a good chat to Remy. He's a good lad, and it was really cool to play a game against him in person. Round 7, so we go on to my next draft, which I do have a photo of. So this is my draft deck for round 7. I believe there was 2 Puffins in this pod. I later found out there was 3. Apparently there was just 2 of us. There was me and Frank, my first round opponent, on opposite ends of the table. And then apparently he passed a Cog in the Machine and a Palantir to German Glukov to the left of him, which, again, I'm so confused about people passing these cards, but maybe there's something I'm missing. So German takes both of those and pivots into Puffin, which was interesting. I think German ended up 3-0ing our pod. But again, throughout the pack, I'm going, oh my god, this deck's so good. I'm like, pretty happy with the quality of cards in the deck. I've got a Life for a Life and a Scar for a Scar, which is exactly where I want to be. I've got some 3-for-7s for like fatigue matchups. Feeling pretty good. So I play against Frank. We have an absolute belter of a game. He starts off with these like crazy turns. I think he did like a 7 attack with Nimblism or something into a Battalion Bark for like 9, and I'm just like, oh man, there's no way I'm winning this game. And Frank's just cooking. I'm just like, oh man, I'm so screwed. And then I look down, and so he's still got quick clicks and Swift Strike braces, and I'm at 7. But then I look down at his deck. He's only got 10 cards left, and I have like 17 plus my hand, and I'm like, I don't really understand how we ended up here, but I think I can just fatigue him. So we keep going for a few more turns, and eventually I just get there based on card quality that's left in my deck. There's a lot of 3 blocks in this deck. I was very, very happy with that. I'd already used a lot of my 2 blocks. And yeah, I just ended up getting there eventually on fatigue. I was very impressed with the deck in that capacity. Very good game against Frank. So I play against Ewan next round on Gravy. So part of my testing with Puffin is I felt really good going first and second in like every matchup apart for the Mirror. I didn't like going first into. I really didn't like going second into first into Gravy. No, second into Gravy. Unfortunately, that's what happened in this matchup, and Ewan's deck was very, very good. I think there was 2 Gravies in our pot again, and I just got fatigued slowly throughout the game. Played a pretty good game with Ewan. He ended up having a Scuba in his deck I didn't know about, and just started like cycling things back. I was like, oh, I'm dead. I'm very dead. Okay, good to know. Last round, I play Oliver, and I was very scared of Oliver's deck going into this round. I'm like, because I'm 5-3 at the end of last round, I'm obviously very, very scared of going to X4, because that means I'm dead for top 8 going into day 2, and I know if I can get back to CC, I stand a real chance at top 8ing. So I play against Oliver. I know he's got a King Kraken Harpoon in his deck, which is very good against this Puffin deck, because if we look at the deck, we've got, how many? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 non-attack actions. So if I get King Kraken Harpooned, I'm probably losing a card, and I'm probably also losing the game. But I also know I can't go to a low life total, because that Harpoon will come in for 10 overpower. I know that I have two really good tools against this. I have a Lost in Transit and a Pinion Sentry. So we get to like midway through the game. I'm on 12, and he's slowly running out of stuff. I've been like denying gold the whole game and like slowly fatiguing him. Because I know I have enough 3 blocks left in the deck. Plus I have the blocks, and I know I have almost never comes up Bandana of the Blue Beyond to cycle back my Pinion Sentry to stop overpower damage later in the game, which was so cool to see it happen. Like I was like, oh, this is a really cool interaction. So I see my Lost in Transit one hand. I go, I don't have time to cycle back to this. I should just stop the overpower now, stop the gold. It's all good. I draw the Pinion Sentry on my next hand, which I think is my last hand. He has about 5-6 cards left, and I know the King Kraken is in his hand, and I have a Pinion Sentry in my hand. So I'm like, okay, I can either like int this or I can like do something with it. I don't know. If I can strip enough cards, he can't fire the King Kraken with overpower this turn, so I just need to do that. So I'm at 12. He sends Walk the Plank red with Charter Course red at me for 10. I go, okay, I take it. I go to my turn, and I'm like thinking for a second. I go red perk up after like activating Puffin, trying to do it twice to draw a card. I play a Cloud Skiff for 5. He's on 10 at this point, so I know I'm stripping enough cards that he can't kill me with the Harpoon. He like looks at it and then he goes, wait, hang on, you're meant to be tapped because of Walk the Plank. And I'm like, oh no, my perk up isn't meant to draw me. Oh my god. So we call a judge over. The judge goes, yes, you can fully rewind. This is like quite bad. And I'm like, even then, I still forgot about the Walk the Plank trigger happening. So I didn't know I wasn't getting my perk up draw. I've got about 4 or 5 gold at this stance and 4 cards left in my deck. And I'm like, that's a big problem. So I end up looking at my turn and structuring it differently by activating gold, all of my gold, to cycle the Pinion Sentry I'm pitching onto the bottom of my deck. No, onto the top of my pitch stack / bottom of my deck. So that when the cards go to bottom, I'll redraw the Pinion Sentry on my turn by 1 card, and I know there's another 3 block to stop the King Kraken Harpoon. Turns out Oliver couldn't stop the amount of damage that was coming through efficiently, so he has to give me too many cards. Essentially, we go through that turn, Oliver ends on like 3, and then he can't fire a big enough attack to kill me through the Pinion Sentry, and the game just ends because I just fatigue him by damage. But honestly, such a cool game. I was really happy with my play and the fact that I managed to kind of pivot out of such a big misplay on my part and the mistrigger and just I was like, oh my god, I think I've just thrown this game. But yeah, it was a cool game and really good. Honestly, just such a good round. It was really good to play against Oliver. And it was obviously a lot of pressure because we're in the X3 bracket. So I go home. On the drive home, I'm thinking about the gravy matchup I had against Farhad, and I'm thinking about the fact that he brought it up to 70 cards, and I'm like, that's interesting, because we got to the end of that game and Farhad had like 10 cards left in deck, and I still had like 25 or something like that, because he's cycling so fast, and I'm killing allies while keeping cards in deck because I'm swinging with my sabers, and I'm like thinking about it consciously, and I'm like, is there a reality where this deck can just pivot to just straight up being a really aggressive deck into their 70 cards with lots of allies and just kill them sometimes? So I go home, I'm like thinking about this on the drive home, I'm like, alright, let's file that into thoughts about tomorrow to see if it happens again for some reason. I go to bed really early at like 9:30 p.m. I get up at 5 a.m. the next day, I like spend some time with my cat, and then I drive back up to the venue, and yeah, I'm like feeling pretty good. So we start the day, and the judge team has accidentally put the pairings out early, and I'm playing into one of the 2 Verdances in my pod. I can actually pull up the clip of the standings. So this is the end of standings on day 2. This is everyone who's still live for top 8 / top 32. So you'll notice there's 2 Verdants in the top bracket, which is obviously not good for me, because even though I think this deck has an okay Verdance matchup, I haven't tested it more than 1 game. And I don't really want to find out in the middle of the tournament. Everything else, I'm like, okay to see. I'll play everything else here. I just don't want to play those two. So then you look in my bracket and you see there is Emma on Verdance, and then no other Verdances in this pile, I believe. Yep. So I know that I just want to go through this day and dodge Emma. I look at my pairings for round 10, and I'm like, oh no. I'm playing into Emma. I'm like, oh no, my entire tournament is about to end. And it's because I pivoted last minute, and like now I'm gonna have to play into Emma on Verdance, and I'm so screwed. And then and then I look at the pairings because they refreshed. Turns out they did a repair because they didn't want people to see their pairings 20 minutes early and go get like advice and stuff. And I repair into Peter. Peter's another Melbourne player, very talented. Always does incredibly well at these events, even though I see him so regularly. And he's playing Syndra, and I'm like, I just let out the biggest exhale of my life. I'm just like, I just went from the worst person I could have bet into probably one of the best. This game was a absolute blowout on my side. I was doing some really messed up stuff. I think I take it on the chin, swung nourishing, then swung 2 swords after, then went to my next turn, swung 2 more swords, and then ended on another nourishing after banishing. Like this was a rough game. This was a very rough game, and I'm sorry for the war crimes I did to Peter. So obviously I'm like, okay, win the next 2 and we stand a good chance. So round 11, I play into Beckett. Beckett's playing Ira. I've not tested this matchup. I had thought about it a bit though, and I thought about the dual threat Kabuto interaction. We're playing a fairly even value trade game for a really long time. I Kabuto his first dual threat, and he arsenals it, and that means that he just sends the CNC for 6 at the end, and then later has to use the dual threat on a nasty surprise instead of a CNC or something like that. And then I get my copper through, and then eventually we hit a point where I'm on 10, he's on 8, I think, but I have 6 copper and a blood on hands in my arsenal, and he sends a CNC, and I'm like, I guess I'm giving you my armor and like 1 card, and that's so then I like tank and think about my turn for a bit to make sure I got the damage coefficient right, and I put him to 1, and then the game just kind of ends there because I have full tempo. Yeah, just that matchup's quite good for me. I think it's just a very solid matchup. So at this point, I'm like, oh my god, I might actually do it. And then I pair. I look at my pairings, and I'm like feeling pretty nervous, and I'm like, had pretty good matchups today. It can't get better than this. I look down. I'm playing against Quanley. Quanley is an incredibly strong player. He's top 8 in multiple callings as well as Australian Nationals multiple times. He's also the guy I was playing Kassai into earlier in the week, who was not Matt McInnes or Matt W of Discord. And I'm like, I think this is really good for me. I think this is probably the best person I could have played in my bracket. I think I can win this game. I sit down and I'm like, thinking about my game against Farhad, who was on the same list because they were testing together, and I'm thinking about what Quan doesn't know I've changed about the deck, such as adding in the Balance of Justice and not activating gold, and I'm like, okay. So Quan boards up to 70 cards like I'm expecting him to, and I start drawing my hands, and I'm drawing the aggro nuts. I'm like, yep, this is the play. This game's just another, like, a bit of a blowout on my side. I'm just, like, hitting my stuff. I think I had a Blood on my hands turn with 4 copper that I just like stacked slice and dices with to get extra swings out of a sharpened sense. It was just like, I just got there, and like we finished our game like relatively quickly for a Gravy Kassai game, which is normally like a 40-minute affair. I think we did like 20-25, and I just got there by like just swinging face and killing eventually, and just managing the allies that need managed. I was very, very happy that I kind of pivoted game plan and managed to kind of respond to that. And then I'm feeling very good. I know there's 3 other games I think that matter. That debate whether I make top 8 or not. One of them goes my way, and then I need the Acilio player who made top 8, Matt Engo, to lose his game. He beats Demos. Unfortunately, I don't get in. And then Emma wins her game, which pushes her up another slot above me, so I go from 8th to 9th to 10th. I get 10th. I'm happy with the result. can't really complain. I think I played all my games really well. I think I drafted fairly well. And I think I reacted very well to expressions of change. I think a lot of my opponents played really well, and I was really, really happy with my play that I kind of managed to get there. Overall, I was very, very happy with coming 10th place at the event. I think it was a really tough one to do well at. And I think I was happy overall with the deck, and I'm very glad I pivoted. And yeah, that kind of wraps up my Australian Nationals. So from here, what's next? For me personally, I'm not going to the Pro Tour Singapore. I recently adopted a cat, so that's not only cards for me right now. But I will be at the Calling Auckland 2025. And I think where we want to talk about is the list and kind of where I'll be adapting it going forward. So one of the first things I wanted to do was kind of look at Justin's list. Justin I'd spoken to a few times over the weekend. I don't think we'd really coordinated that much. We're both Melbourne players, but we spoke briefly about the Verdance matchup. He said, yeah, I'm just going to go aggro and no AB and just get there. And I'm like, yep, alright, fair enough. I believe you. You've played the deck longer than me. If you know what you're doing, you know what you're doing. Things about Justin's list that I thought was really interesting. Blanche, I did try it. I was not impressed, but I think Justin is on slightly more... No, same amount of blues. Justin's on like CNC and more ways to kind of throw multiple attacks in a turn, so I can see this card being better. He's playing Red Hidden Run, which is a card I actually really like, but I just couldn't find room for. Iron Song Response I really like. I just think the meta's not that defensive right now, but maybe into Verdance, that card's very good. Yeah, I understood where he was going with this list. It's just a very aggressive take on the deck that just tries to get there in the matchups that it can, and everything still blocks 3, so it gets there. I thought Performance Bonus was really, really cool tech. I didn't consider it personally, but that's because I think the Gravy matchup was already worked out on my side. Massive congratulations to Justin for coming first place and being our new Australian national champion. Definitely deserves it. One of the better players I know, and one of the better Kassais I know. So where I kind of want to take the deck moving forward, I think this is my current list that I'm going to start testing for Calling Auckland. So you'll notice I'm adding Draw Swords back in. I found that a lot of Go Again is really good at attack reaction, but also you don't need to have as much Go Again if you add in the extra Go Again on the reactions. So I wanted to kind of bring the Draw Swords back into the list as a really good way to filter through your deck into the matchups like Verdance, where you're just trying to play every 5-card hand over and over and over again until they die before they can kill you. And I think this is mainly one of the big things I'll be testing. Other than that, these are all staying the same. Take It on the Chin is moving to the main deck. I was so impressed with this card over the weekend. I just think it's very, very good into so many decks. I don't think there's ever a reality where you play this deck without 2 Take It on the Chin. I dropped a blue Blade Runner. Again, I just wanted to kind of reduce my Go Again sources, but I wanted to keep the blue ratio the same. I want to add one more copy of Provoke for matchups like Verdance, or Prism, or just anything where this card is overrate. What else we took? I cut a copy of Raisin Army. I found that this card is not as impactful in this metagame as it is others, and there are better yellows for you to run in the slot now. Just that third extra slot, just one more impactful card. There was a couple of times, like against Farhad, where I drew a hand and I went, this hand doesn't work the way I want it to because this yellow doesn't deal damage. And I think that ultimately you only need 2 copies of this card to start with. We're still playing the Fabled. Other than that, the main deck's unchanged. I've cut my Bastions. I really want to test the Prism matchup a bit. While not playing Bastion, I've moved up to 3 Sync Blow in order to kind of combat the Assassin threat that I imagine to come in, either in Mario's, capitalizing on the Slippies that are in the format, or Slippies that are capitalizing on the Cinders in this format. And I think these are all really good changes going forward to make the deck, and I think if I was playing Pro Tour Singapore, my list would look something very similar to this. And yeah, I think that wraps up pretty well the event and kind of my performance. Overall, I really couldn't be unhappy with 10th place going into this tournament, especially seeing as the Tuesday before I was absolutely like, oh my god, I'm going to 06 this tournament. Overall, very, very happy with the deck. I want to shout out a big thank you to Matt McGuinness, Matt W., Quan Lee, Bill Hun, and Finn Luong. All those people gave me a lot of really good advice and testing practice, and really helped me condense essentially what should have been a month's worth of games into 3 days. Massive help to all of you guys, and really, really big help. Kind of getting me to that Worlds invite for Philadelphia, as well as the Conqueror of the High Seas playmat, which I'm very excited, and giving me a chance to make top 8. Overall, very happy with my performance. I think going forward, I will be looking at my draft record and seeing where I can improve in terms of that. Obviously, not really relevant coming up until ProQuest season, which I think we will be making a lot of content about LL, kind of the introduction of that format into the Worlds format, as well as ProQuest season. I hope this has been an enjoyable video, and I hope you guys learned a lot about Kassai and kind of what the deck's like, and why you play the cards you do, and kind of where it will be going moving forward. I'll post the links to the decks below. Thanks again. Hope you guys have a good day, and good luck with Pro Tour Singapore.